Have you ever funded someone's dreams only to discover they were using your money as a ticket to betrayal? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I stirred my coffee so hard the porcelain cup rattled on the table. Across from me, my oldest friend Danny looked up from her avocado toast, concern etched in her eyes. The mid-morning sun spilled through the cafe window, but I felt like I'd been standing in the dark for weeks. "Tell me everything," she said, leaning in. I took a breath and began. It started with that innocuous text. "I need to go to Costa Mar Villas for a week. There's a crucial client dinner and they're flying me out." He signed it. "Love, Alex." My brows knit. Alex was my fiancé. For 3 years, we'd navigated rent, jobs, and the transition from clueless 20-somethings to something resembling responsible adults. We celebrated small victories, promotions, our first apartment, even that cursed avocado fiasco that left our living room smelling like guacamole for days. I believed we were partners in every sense. Partners in bills, in bad jokes, in saving for an eventual house. Partners in life. "Is Costa Mar really your client?" I'd asked in the grocery aisle, arms full of yogurt and pre-made salads. He'd flashed that disarming grin. "Absolutely. They're a big deal. Closing that deal could land me a directorship. You know how hard I've worked." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. And when he sheepishly added, "My company covers airfare, but I need you to handle the resort stay and split the villa cost." I didn't blink. We still had our joint savings account, money we funneled into a future home fund. Splitting the cost on a beachfront villa for 1 week seemed a small price to pay for his career. I transferred $4,200 that night, watching the transaction confirm, trusting his promise that he'd email me the receipt and paperwork in a day or two. But days turned into a week, and the receipt never came. Instead, I got photos. Notifications on Instagram. My phone pinged with a story from an account I didn't follow. A snapshot of Alex at the infinity pool, champagne flute in hand, wrapped in the arm of a woman in a red sundress whose face glittered with shadows I didn't know. Then another, them laughing under a tiki torch, lips inches apart. Beneath one image, a caption in Alex's handwriting, "You deserve this, my love." I pressed replay until my heart felt like gelatin. I booked the earliest flight I could find. 24 hours later, I was on the sand at Costa Mar Villas, disguised sunglasses shielding my red-rimmed eyes. The resort was even more opulent than in the brochures. White stone bungalows ringed a crystalline lagoon, palm fronds drifting like gentle fans. A sign at the entrance read, "Welcome to Costa Mar Villas, where luxury meets legacy." I stepped through the archway, my skin prickling with dread and fury. In the lobby I spotted them, Alex, impeccably clothed in linen, and the woman from the photos, her name I later learned was Isabella, his trainer-turned-mistress. They sat on a carved teak sofa, champagne bucket between them, looking so content I almost threw my iced latte at them. Instead, I slid my luggage to the desk and asked to see the villa he'd booked. The concierge raised an eyebrow but led me down winding corridors to Villa 4B, a sprawling deck overlooking the Pacific, 2 bedrooms, a private plunge pool. I ran my hand along the teak rails, trying to will anger away, but the truth hit me. This villa was rented with my money, every dollar I'd squirreled away for our future. My future. Their illicit joyride. My trust collapsed in sharp shards. I confronted him on the terrace, the moon silvering the waves behind me. "Why?" I managed. His face drained when he saw me. Isabella's eyes went wide, and she slipped away down a service corridor. Alex stammered, It wasn't like that." "It wasn't like that," I echoed, voice shaking. "You borrowed my savings to rent this place, our place, and you didn't even have the courtesy to book 2 beds. I gestured at the single master suite's half-open door. He stuttered, I thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" I cried. "That the woman you were cheating on me with gets the ocean view that I paid for." He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry. I'll pay you back." "Don't!" I shook my head so hard, my ponytail slapped the back of my head. "Don't you dare!" I turned and walked away, leaving him alone with his regrets and the glittering sea. Back in my hometown 2 days later, I stumbled off the airport shuttle and collapsed in my best friend Danny's front yard. She wrapped me in her arms, and I sobbed through the night. When morning came, I felt hollow, until a spark of something like vengeance flickered within me. I searched online. Costa Mar Villas was in foreclosure. The owner had defaulted on his promissory note 6 months ago, and the bank was eager to sell. The package deal, land, rights, and the luxury villas, listed at $1.2 million. I stared at the number on my laptop, and my stomach wobbled like a V8 on a trampoline. My savings were gone, but I had assets: a modest condo with decent equity, a small inheritance tucked away as rainy day fund, a stellar credit score. If I refinanced my condo, could I scrape together a down payment? Could Danny and a few friends pitch in as silent investors? It was insane, ludicrous. But it was the only way to turn my humiliation into a new beginning. I hovered over the phone, dialing my mortgage broker, my heart racing in my ears. Over the next week, I became a woman possessed. I met with financial advisors over granola bars, signed endless forms in windowless banks, and learned the acronyms REO and HELOC. Danny hammered out a term sheet with her cousin's investment group, securing a small business loan at an astonishingly low rate for women entrepreneurs. My parents pledged a small cosign on the refinancing. By the time I walked into the broker's office to sign my refinance papers, tears spilled down my face. I was about to risk everything on a scheme born of anger. Next, I called the bank holding Costa Mar's deed. I arranged a viewing, taking a camera and a small notebook. The property manager, a grey-haired man named Victor, met me at the front gates, the wrought iron doors still swinging on their hinges. The villa grounds were stunning, even in neglect. Walls stained with vine scars, loungers flipped face down on unkempt lawns, the lagoon's water murky at the edges. I wound through broken flower beds toward the main lodge, my shoes sinking in soft grass. When Victor ushered me into the grand ballroom, once a dance floor for honeymooners, I closed my eyes and imagined laughter echoing off those walls, vows whispered beneath chandeliers, the pulse of celebration. And then I imagined something else: families in crisis finding shelter here, laughter reborn, new vows sung to the song of generosity. I spent the next 2 days drafting a purchase offer, $125,000 cash, closing in 30 days, with a clause to convert the property into a non-profit-run shelter. Victor said he'd present it to the bank that afternoon. I drove home clutching my laptop, breath shallow. That night I paced until my phone buzzed. Offer accepted on your terms, closing scheduled May 15th. On May 15th, under sheets of drizzle, I stood outside Costa Mar Villas with Danny and an eager photographer from Local Lives magazine. We signed the closing papers in a conference room with peeling wallpaper and a view of the overgrown koi pond. Holding the keys, big brass rings that clanked like handcuffs, I felt terror and triumph clashing in my chest. I turned the key in Villa 4B's door, stepping onto the veranda and inhaling salt-tinged air, feeling the weight of every dollar Alex had spent here fall away. This place now belonged to me, and to the dream I dared to breathe into life. Within days, I began Project Haven, transforming Costa Mar into the Maris Foundation shelter. My vision: 50 private rooms for survivors of domestic violence and homelessness, a communal kitchen serving hot meals, a counseling centre staffed by volunteer therapists, and a job training program partnered with local non-profits. I sketched floor plans on the dusty ballroom floor, tape marking out therapy and meditation rooms. Danny drafted logos. Her cousin's investment group funded the initial renovation capital. I found an architect willing to donate design time. Local carpenters volunteered to refinish the floors and build bunk beds for children. The community buzzed: volunteers from my church, friends who'd stuffed envelopes in college, strangers who'd read about me in the papers. Suddenly, my betrayal had spun a web of goodwill. But the path was thorny. The resort's septic system needed a full overhaul, the lodges required rewiring to meet shelter codes, and the pool was a mosquito haven that threatened health violations. My small army of donors earmarked funds for structural repairs. Each day, I battled contractors over quotes. "You're overcharging us," I'd snap. Then balanced those headaches with daily volunteer bliss, setting up donated furnishings, welcoming the first delivery of twin beds from Habitat for Humanity, stringing up solar lanterns in the courtyard to light the path for residents. On June the 1st, I hosted a psalter opening, a potluck dinner with chili and cornbread, local church choirs singing soul-lifting hymns under the moonlit sky, survivors and their children exploring their new rooms. In the corner, a little girl giggled as she tested out a swing I'd refurbished from the old pool deck. Each smile felt like the $1,000 ring Alex had bought for his mistress, a frail, hollow promise reforged into something real and lasting. That night, as we blew out candles on an overlarge birthday cake celebrating Project Haven's launch, I slipped away to a balcony overlooking the lagoon. Fireflies danced over the water like living lanterns. My phone vibrated with a single text. "You bankrupt me. I'm coming." The sender ID scrolled Alex. My chest tightened, but I let the message fade to black. I sipped water, letting the gentle lapping of the koi pond soothe me. Here, in the hush of genuine purpose, his threats were powerless. I closed my eyes, feeling the breeze carry the scent of jasmine and freshly painted walls. Project Haven had been born from my lowest moment of betrayal, funded by his selfish whims, transformed by my resolve. As the first group of residents drifted to their rooms, safe, warm, and nourished, I realized the true meaning of business trip, the journey from victim to visionary. Part 1 ends here, from heartbreak and theft to a purchase that flips betrayal into a beacon of hope. In Part 2, I'll take you through the challenges of running a shelter at a former luxury resort, navigating funding crises, local backlash from envy and law, and the moment Alex finally shows up at my door, begging for redemption in a place he never had a right to. But for now, know this: sometimes the only way to reclaim your story is to buy back the scene of the crime and rewrite the ending for everyone in need of a safe harbor. The first time I saw Costa Mar transformed, it was at dawn on opening day, when the pink light spilled over the lagoon and turned the water to melted rose. I stood on the cracked flagstone steps leading from the ballroom out to the veranda, flanked by Danny and my cousin Raphael, who'd flown in to help finish the renovations. Dozens of residents, women and children bundled in donated blankets, peeked out of the refurbished villas, blinking like owls into the new day. Volunteers bustled around, setting out healthy breakfast trays, hot coffee pots, and stacks of clean towels. My heart thudded so loud I thought the lagoon might echo it. Not so long ago, this place had glowed only for honeymooners, a stage for stolen glances and sparkler dances. And then it had fallen to weeds, a ghost resort where broken promises lingered among the palms. But now it breathed again, an 80-bed shelter, a sanctuary where survivors of domestic violence and families facing homelessness found refuge under the same roof I'd once paid for as a VIP getaway. I felt my chest tighten. Every penny Alex had spent here had become 4 walls of safety. A cluster of reporters from the local paper, the Sun Herald, huddled near the entrance, microphones poised like silver flowers. I waved at them and turned to a handful of staff. "Make sure we roll out the hot oatmeal first," I reminded our volunteer coordinator. Raphael gave me a thumbs up. Danny handed me a clipboard. "Let's do this," she whispered. I advanced to the reception desk, where I'd pinned a photo of the old entry sign, Costa Mar Villas, next to the new carved plaque, the Maris Foundation, Sanctuary at Costa Mar. I cleared my throat and the throng hushed. "Welcome," I began, voice echoing under the high ceiling. "This morning, these villas open their doors to those who need a safe harbor. Here, you'll find food, shelter, counseling, and community. We believe that every person deserves dignity, respect, and the chance to rebuild." The applause rose like the tide. A little girl with a shy smile waved at me. I mouthed back, "You're safe now." After the ribbon cutting, complete with a giant pair of ceremonial scissors borrowed from the local Chamber of Commerce, Danny shepherded me toward a small side room where my attorney Diane and our board members waited. Charmaine Lyon from the Women's Loan Fund, Pastor Miguel from St. Teresa's Church, and Dr. Patel, a child psychologist volunteering at our counseling centre. "First order of business," Diane said, handing me a folder. "The shelter license arrived overnight. We're compliant with health and safety codes." I exhaled. Raphael pounded me lightly on the back. "You did it!" Pastor Miguel rose, hands raised. "God bless this place and all who enter." We bowed heads, and he led a quiet prayer, sealing our work with something deeper than paperwork. But the real challenges began as the sun climbed. The first storm rolled in that afternoon, sheets of rain whipping against the windows and flooding a low spot by Villa 2F. I received a frantic call. "Water's pooling in the common room." I bolted upstairs, boots squishing through a thin film of water, and found 2 maintenance volunteers mopping in a frantic dance. A drain pipe from the original pool overflowed, bursting a seam. We shut off the water, lugged buckets to the drainage grate, and radioed a plumber. Raphael and I spent 2 hours on wet knees, resetting the grate and resealing the pipe. By the time the rain ceased, my shirt was soaked through and my patience frayed. But the crisis passed without displacing a single family. That evening, I sat at a long wooden table in the revamped dining hall, listening to stories over donated lasagna. A mother from Villa 3C described how she and her 3 children had escaped an abusive partner the week before, sleeping in their car until we called her and offered a room. A young man recovering from addiction shared gratitude for the daily support group we'd launched. Their voices wove a tapestry of resilience, and I felt tears sting. This was the purpose I'd craved on that betrayal night, a purpose that outshone any broken promise. Yet the golden glow of success couldn't shield me from the darker currents swirling beyond our gates. 2 days after opening, a letter arrived from the neighbouring resort developer, subject, unauthorised use of Costa Mar trademark. They claimed the name Costa Mar remained a protected brand and demanded we cease using the old signage or face litigation. I sighed at the inked threats. My attorney assured me this was bluster. In foreclosure, the bank had sold the property title inclusive of brand rights. We would counter with recorded deeds. Still, I pushed the problem aside, focusing on relocating the letterpress sign to a fenced storage yard. Meanwhile, word spread online that Costa Mar, once the exclusive retreat for the wealthy, had morphed into a shelter. A Facebook group of ex-guests erupted in outrage. This was our secret oasis. They posted photos of crabapple trees and white lilies, complaining about charity residents running through their memories. A handful even organised a protest online. "Return the luxury resort." They planned to show up at our 8 a.m. breakfast line for a taste of reality. I steeled myself. Our work was bigger than nostalgia. At dawn on day 5, Iski Anamansai, 18 protesters assembled near the guardhouse, holding signs like Costa Mar for Costa Mar and Shelters Elsewhere. I approached them, flanked by Pastor Miguel and 2 gentle volunteers. I offered coffee and muffins, our treat, no cost, and asked them to sit beneath the palapa. Their scowls softened over steaming cups. One woman, clutching her designer tote, muttered, "It's still a resort, should be for paying guests." I nodded. We all pay a price, some with money, some with blood, sweat, tears. These families paid with their safety. Please consider joining us in supporting them. More than half the group took seats. A protest retreat was born. They listened to my story, and grudging wariness turned into quiet empathy. By noon, the signs lay discarded under a bougainvillea bush. That evening, I found myself walking the coral path by the lagoon with the last holdouts, an older couple whose anniversary they once spent here. I told them about Maria, a cancer patient fighting for her life, whose biggest concern used to be affordability. "This place saved her," I said. He sniffed. I suppose if it saves one life. My smile brightened. It saved more. The couple left with hesitant smiles, promising to volunteer in our art therapy workshops. 2 weeks in, a bigger storm threatened our finances. An unexpected bill for the roof replacement, $9,000, landed in my inbox. My reserves were already thin from the pipeline of renovations. I paced the ballroom floor, lit only by emergency lanterns we'd installed after that first flood. Panic flickered. Would we be forced to evict families mid-season? I called Charmaine at midnight, voice shaky. "We need an emergency fund drive," she said calmly. "I'll match the first $5,000. We can launch a crowdfunding campaign." I exhaled relief, rallying our volunteers to film heartfelt appeals, children holding signs, "Thank you, Costamare," and staff explaining the storm's impact. By dawn, we'd raised $12,000, more than enough to cover the repairs and replenish supplies. Summer tipped into autumn with fewer crises and more quiet victories. I added a job training program, hospitality skills taught in the grand ballroom. A dozen residents secured part-time positions at a nearby boutique hotel. The days grew short, and the cocoon of the Maris Foundation felt both fragile and indestructible. Fragile because a single financial jab could topple us. Indestructible because we stood on trauma forged into community. Then, on an unseasonably warm October morning, I found a familiar name on the volunteer sign-in sheet. Alex Matthews. My hands trembled as I read the scrawled signature, A. Matthews. He'd arrived to drop off winter jackets, donated by his company's CSR program. I felt every betrayal pulse through my veins. For a moment, I considered turning him away, banning him just as I'd banned my trainer years ago. But these gates were meant to keep out violence and fear, not remorse. I sighed, squared my shoulders, and approached him. He stood by the old tiki bar, now a coat drop, holding an armful of donated jackets. His face was drawn, hollowed by guilt and exhaustion. "Anya," he began, voice trembling, I'm so sorry." I folded my arms. "You used my savings to betray me at this very resort." He nodded. "I know, I lost my job, lost my way. I heard you bought the place and turned it into a shelter. I had to see it." I swallowed. "Why are you here?" He swallowed hard. "I want to help." I studied him, once my partner, now a humbled volunteer. "Donations only go so far," I said. "We do construction, counselling, job training. We could use an extra pair of hands in the carpentry workshop." He brightened. "I studied architecture. I can help with room layouts." I nodded. "Okay." As he began unloading jackets, carefully, reverently, I realized he would never wear them. They, like our relationship, had outlived their purpose. But here, in this place of second chances, he might rebuild something worthwhile. I watched him bend beneath the weight of his remorse, stepping into a new role that honored my vision rather than shattering it. That evening, as I closed the gates and flicked the neon Sanctuary at Costamare sign off, I felt the full weight of my journey. What began as a rescue mission from betrayal had become a revival of hope for dozens of families. I thought of Alex, sleeves rolled up in the carpentry corner, learning the craft of care rather than deceit. I thought of the children sleeping in beds my heartbreak had funded, the mothers huddled in crocheted blankets donated by church groups, the laughter, gentle, resilient, echoing through the palm fronds. In the distance, the waves murmured against the shore, as they always had. But now they sang of something new. Transformation born from betrayal, sanctuary born from scars. And I knew this story, our story, would continue well beyond these salt-washed walls, carrying the promise that sometimes the greatest love we can find is the one we build for others.